We're always hearing about the massive data sets that power AI, but have you ever stopped to wonder how that data is actually created? It turns out it's not nearly as simple as you might think. So today, we're going to dive into the really intricate, kind of messy, real-world workflows that turn raw info into valuable AI assets, and how a system like Codatta is built to handle all that complexity.
So when you think about data processing, you probably picture something like a factory assembly line, right? Raw data goes in one end, it gets labeled, and a nice, neat, finished product comes out the other. But is that really how it works in the creative and, let's be honest, chaotic world of AI development? Yeah, not even close. The reality is, it's a mesh. It's this complex, interconnected web where data gets pulled apart, mashed together, and reinterpreted in a million different ways. It's way more dynamic and organic than a simple production line.
And that is the fundamental challenge we're talking about. See, real-world data doesn't follow a straight path. It branches out to serve totally different needs, it combines with other data to create new insights, and it gets layered with all sorts of analysis and evaluation. It's more like a living, breathing ecosystem.
And all that complexity? It creates a huge problem. I mean, in this tangled web of data, how on earth do you keep track of who did what? Who owns which little piece? And maybe most importantly, who gets paid when a piece of data they worked on gets used? This is the central puzzle we have to solve for collaborative AI to really take off.
Okay, to make this super clear, let's walk through a practical example. Our first scenario is all about how data branches out, how one single piece of information can spawn multiple totally unique assets.
All right, imagine you've got one single raw image from a street camera. First, one team comes in and adds a set of labels for a self-driving car company. Identifying pedestrians, traffic lights, other cars. Then, a second team comes along and uses that exact same image, but adds a completely different set of labels for, say, a delivery robot, this time focusing on sidewalks, doorways, and little obstacles. So what's the result? Bam! You now have two completely separate, super valuable data assets that came from the very same starting point.
The implications of this are just huge. It means one piece of data can fuel totally different industries. And because a system like Codatta can track every single branch, each new asset can have its own specific license and its own royalty structure. This is so important because it means the person who created that original data can benefit from every new use case that pops up down the road. The value of their work is tracked on every branch, no matter how many ways it gets repurposed. Okay, so data can branch out, but what happens when you need to bring it all back together? Our next scenario digs into how data is combined and how teamwork can create a much bigger picture from a bunch of smaller pieces.
To get this, just think about the difference between a simple task and a complex one. Labeling one object in one photo, that's pretty self-contained. But what about describing a sequence of actions in a video? Well, to do that, you need context from a whole bunch of frames. You have to combine them.
Let's just picture it. You take frame 1 from a video, then you grab frame 2, and then frame 3. Now, on their own, they're just snapshots. But when you bundle them all together and label them as one single unit, you've just created a brand new composite asset. Let's call it an action sequence. And that new thing has way more value and context than any of the individual frames did by themselves.
So how do you actually track this kind of combination? Well, the system uses something called derivation links. This is the secret sauce, the key mechanism that preserves the connection back to all the original pieces. You can think of it like a digital recipe card that lists every single ingredient. This link makes sure that if that action sequence asset is ever used, the people who contributed frame 1, frame 2, and frame 3 all get their proper credit and payment automatically. It's how you reward real teamwork.
All right, now for our third scenario, and this one's really fascinating. What if the most valuable work isn't about labeling the raw data at all? What if it's about evaluating, reviewing, and labeling the work that's already been done? This is where we start adding layers of value on top of other contributions.
This whole idea is perfectly captured in this quote from the source material. Not all work targets raw data. You can label other labels. It's such a powerful idea, right? The work of quality control, of evaluation, that's a top-tier contribution in itself, and it's just as vital as that first label.
So let's see this hierarchy in action. You start with the raw image, someone comes along and adds the first label, this is a car.
Simple enough. But then a second person, an evaluator, comes in and adds a meta label on top of that first one. Maybe they add a confidence score, like 95%, or a little note, and the result is a complete, fully tracked hierarchy of every single contribution.
And the payoff here is just fantastic. It means that everyone in the chain is recognized and rewarded. So when that final high-quality data asset gets used, royalties don't just go to the person who made the original car label. They also flow to the person who provided that valuable meta label, the one that verified its quality. It actually makes quality assurance a valued and, more importantly, a compensated part of the entire process.
So, we've seen data branch, we've seen it combine, and we've seen it get layered. Now let's connect all these dots and talk about why a model that can actually handle this level of complexity is so critical for the future of AI.
When you boil it all down, this model matters because it reflects reality. It's not trying to shove the messy, creative process of AI development into some rigid, linear box. It fully embraces the fact that data work is branching, it's layered, and it is fundamentally deeply collaborative. It's built for how people actually build amazing things together.
A system that's built on this reality delivers what you could call the 4 pillars of trustworthy data. And this is the real payoff. First, you get clear lineage, so you always know exactly where every piece of data came from, which is just crucial for accountability. Second, you get fair licensing, so you can apply specific rules to specific assets. Third, you get correct payouts, which guarantees that every single person in the value chain is compensated fairly for their work. And finally, you get end-to-end provenance, a complete, auditable history of the data's entire journey. That's how you build the trust we're all going to need for AI to really flourish.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought. If every single contribution to a data set, from the initial photo to the first label to that final quality check, has a clear, traceable, and economic value attached to it, what does the future of building AI together actually look like? What new kinds of collaboration does that suddenly make possible?